And hello, welcome back to Talk the Truth, the Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Bernard Trainer. My co-host is Leland Faegre. And how many days now until the election?
90.
90 days until the election.
And even 90 days, yeah.
And gold has hit over 2,000.
Very exciting. It's manic, however.
Yeah.
I would be very concerned.
Well, I would hope for a retracement. Then I'll probably buy some more.
Right.
But,
you can dollar cost average in.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, most hear about gold for the first time in several years, and they say, oh, let's get some money in there. You know? And when they get it in there is when it reverses the trend line, and then they escape to some other, probably to cash, and they've lost money in the process. It's really unfortunate that investors are not. And this is another complaint that I have about public schools, is they don't do a good job of informing you as to how to invest in asset classes.
Right.
Because we could all be wealthier than we are.
Yes.
All of us.
Yes.
If we understood some basics. Why don't the public schools teach that stuff? I maintain that if by the end of your senior year in high school, you don't know what to do with your money,
right,
or how to vote,
right,
that institution is worse than worthless.
Well, it's all determined by the government. You go to your job, you get a W-4. They tell you to fill it out. You get your taxes withheld, and then that's it. I mean, if you're lucky, your company has an employer-based IRA, which doesn't allow you to go to gold or silver, and you have to.
Right, that is not an option.
Yeah, so you have to either do a separate one, or else you have to, wait until your retirement is ended, like I did, and then I immediately switched over to silver as soon as I could.
And ideally, if they offer some sort of counsel in this area of investment, most companies do have either they have someone on site or they bring in people.
Right.
But they really shouldn't need those people. They should have a grasp of the investment schemes that are out there before they ever, leave their senior year in high school.
They don't even teach them how to count. I mean,
how
to do simple business math.
I forgot about that.
They have to retrain them when they go to work or go to community college.
Yeah, it's really awful.
I know. And don't even talk about civics. We won't even go there because no, it's
that's
we
by
were
design.
Founded by slave-owning white supremacists,
and now their ancestors are still in charge.
Yep. All right. So what else is happening?
And I know that because MSNBC told us.
Yes. So our Democratic presidential nominee continues to lead in the polls, at least according to the mainstream media, while he's unable to appear coherent.
And he's unable to appear in Milwaukee.
Right. He's not going to Milwaukee.
He's not going to go to Milwaukee. It's too dangerous to go to Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, he's a senior, and he's been hiding in his basement to avoid any contact at all.
Isn't that convenient, though?
Yes, and
a pathogen is released on the world, and for all intents and purposes, this guy came out of a basement once in how many months? 3 or 4 times, since he's become the effective nominee, and he can always blame that pathogen for not appearing somewhere,
right,
including the debates.
And remember, it took him a couple of weeks, and the excuse was they were building a studio in his basement, and now he does a 20-minute podcast. He does one a week. It has to be edited down so much, no doubt.
Oh, man.
You know the thing.
Yeah, and you'd have to be a fly on the wall to really appreciate how difficult that must be working with the guy.
Yes. So on an MSN interview in the last few days, he read direct on Sunday. You don't do this on the Sunday talk shows. He was looking down, reading directly from notes.
I didn't see that. I noticed your acknowledgement of that here, and I wished I'd seen it.
Yeah, that's not something you do on Sunday morning TV. You don't read from notes.
Right.
And then he lost his place and he started rambling,
And he did that again this morning.
Yes, and he did it. He was at another public meeting, I don't know where, but he got up and announced that he was in the wrong place. He announced that,
He's not sure
You're
where
a
he is.
dog-faced pony soldier.
But the advantage, according to what we're told by effectively the apartheid media, is that his sensitivity to COVID and some of these other issues that are associated with that party is where his strength is.
Right.
It's a case where we cannot let this. We've never allowed any crisis from the Civil War straight through to the pandemic of 17, all the way around 16. We have never let our democracy take second fiddle. We can both have a democracy and elections and at the same time correct the public health.
Never.
Never. Then he went on Arizona TV, and if you're not on YouTube, you may not have seen this.
There's televisions in Arizona?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And he seemed to say that Arizona had over 200,000 deaths. I mean, he kind of slurred it, but that's what he seemed to say.
Yeah, he has trouble with figures.
Right. And then after about 10 minutes, he started rambling, and a female voice came on.
Oh, and closed and ended the interview?
Yeah, ended the interview.
I did see that. That's pretty interesting, huh?
They just put up a name, maybe of the company that was doing it.
Right.
Black screen, and that was it.
And
Bang.
Joe was gone.
Yeah.
They have to secure his inability to speak somehow. Right. Because his mental acuity will serve him the fate he deserves if anybody gets to see it, if they're ever out there for them to see.
Well, and this over 30% of Americans report going hungry in the last week. The evictions and foreclosures are on the verge of reaching new heights while the Congress does nothing. Congressional approval is at about 18% or less, the approval rating.
I think it's low teens, isn't it?
Yeah, it could even be less than that. And meanwhile, we'll come back the rest of the show because the world is revolting against the lockdowns.
Are they?
A large part of it.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. That's going to be interesting to talk about. So we're going to give our sponsors time to identify themselves?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And then we'll be back.
Ready for a live game of Clue? For nearly 30 years, Funtime Theaters held private and monthly dinner murder mysteries. Each night is different, and each...
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now back to the show.
All right, and welcome back. Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. And I'm Brendan Traynor and my co-host Leland Faegre. And we were talking about how the rest of the world... the Western world, in fact, is revolting against the COVID-19 restrictions and lockdowns. And there were major demonstrations in, for example, over the weekend in Germany, the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin.
It's a good place to have a demonstration.
Yeah.
Brandenburg Gate.
That whole boulevard was packed with hundreds of thousands of Berliners, and none of them were wearing masks.
Ich bin ein Berliner.
Yes. Also, we've seen demonstrations in the UK, in Tel Aviv, Israel, and the Dutch say that they have studied the issue and they are not going to recommend mandatory face masks except on public transit. They said the science is inconclusive. And so they're just urging social distancing and washing, frequent hand washing.
I'm reminded of the Billy Joel lyric, we had the Midas touch until we met the Dutch.
And then, Belarus, they tried to get an IMF loan for economic development, and they said they had to lock down to get it, and they said, bugger off. So they're trying to pressurize,
Is that Dutch?
That's Belarusian.
Oh, okay.
Take a drink of vodka and relax. And bugger off. And then and then Uruguay in South America, which is one of the two countries in the world that has completely legal marijuana, Uruguay also elected a center-right, a young politician, a young man.
Emphasis on young.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference here.
So, yeah, it's a generational thing. And they're also not going with the mandatory lockdown and masks and so on. So,
well, I mean, it's common sense that the herd immunity is all we've got.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I know.
That's all we've got.
You know, all this talk about a vaccine, I mean, only 40% of Americans say they would let themselves be vaccinated.
And then they don't want us to experiment with therapeutics.
No.
So, I mean, we're just left with only one thing, and that's herd immunity.
They pulled those doctors off.
It is what it is.
Yeah. They pulled the doctors off of YouTube that were talking about hydroquinone. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They can't have any dissent from the orthodoxy.
No. And the influence of the state in medicine has a lot to do with that.
Right.
And that's where we've come. You know, I don't know if people remember this, but the first HMOs, remember that description?
Right.
That was initiated under Richard Nixon.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That's how far back government intrusion into healthcare began.
Even before that, goes back to the 40s when they when they instituted when they had caps, wage and price controls on what employers could pay employees. So they say, all right, you can't pay them any more money, but you can give them health insurance and it'll be tax deductible.
Incentivized it.
Yeah. And so that's why we have all these insurance dominating the health industry.
Right.
I mean, you know, if you don't want to look at the AMA, you can look at the...
I want to look at the AMA.
Well, I want to look at them with a skeptical eye. Yeah.
With a magnifying glass.
Yeah, but the American Association of Physicians and Surgeons, ever hear of them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Based in Tucson?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're talking about... There is one doctor, I think, in the Reno area that has a practice like this. They're talking about concierge medicine for the masses. That you have a doctor that you go through for all your needs, and the doctor even gets the drugs for you. And so you have a concierge doctor that takes care of everything. If you have to be referred, okay, you're referred to a specialist. But we could have had a system like that. We could have had a system that was not based on... So now that on your employment and insurance tied to your employment. So now we have a pandemic. We have so much unemployment. People have lost their health insurance. And the only thing that they're talking about is whether we should nationalize medicine.
Right.
Medicare for all.
Yeah, making it worse.
Yeah, I know.
You really can't make it up.
No.
How we got here, and now they want to, effectively throw good health care just completely off a cliff.
Now, the slippery slope might technically be a logical fallacy, but still, it seems to work in the world of politics. And once you get the camel's nose under the tent, it just keeps increasing until something like this happens, a pandemic, and then you either got to nationalize or you got to start all over, and the Republicans don't have the guts to start all over.
No, that's right, and that's a big problem.
Right.
It already, notwithstanding John McCain. I mean, this is we got it into this mess even without John McCain.
Oh yeah. Repeal and replace with what? Oh well, Trump. President Trump said he's going to have a new medical plan. We haven't seen it yet.
Right. It's supposed to be imminent, though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We'll see what it says.
But the oxymoronic phrase that always drives me crazy is government experts. When I hear those two words put together,
like military intelligence.
Yeah. And it's never in quotes.
No.
It's always legitimate. There's some association between the two words, and there really isn't.
Well, we're being ruled by experts. It's the managerial state. The managerial elite that they were talking about emerging out of World War II back in the day of the early National Review, before they became completely neocon.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And James Burnham, that was the main guy talking about it.
Well, it was William F. Buckley who took him down that road. And,
right.
And he was a member, of course, of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Right.
So it was inevitable that it found itself in that place on the spectrum.
Sure. So they purged the Libertarians like Murray Rothbard. They purged Joseph Sobran.
They went after Robert Welch of the John Birch Society.
The John Birch Society. They all got purged.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And then so that's what gave us conservative ink.
And the globalist mindset that dominates the media today, if you're on that side. And, there are all kinds of expressive sources for that now. But, I mean, one time it really was Buckley,
So in the... no matter who you vote for, you get John McCain.
Yeah.
View.
Yeah.
Senator Chris Murphy, who has basically been a non-interventionist, he started tweeting about how Trump didn't do a good enough job in overthrowing Maduro.
I know. You just can't make... I don't know. The longer you keep yourself associated with your television channels, you just can't believe some of the stuff that comes out of there.
I know.
This was another one of those things.
Yes.
How can they be so wrong about something and so right about something else? They're so inconsistent.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's maddening. It's maddening to see that these people never, even in the face of everything that's going on in the world, all the end of the unipolar world, how obvious it is that NATO no longer serves any purpose, how obvious it is that the dollar is under attack by people that are so, PO'd about the way we're throwing our weight around and sanctioning everybody. Even despite this, nobody is talking about it, in any kind of logical, coherent way, unless you go to Russia Today
or listen to Talking Truth to Power.
Talking Truth to Power. We're talking about it here.
We do it every
week.
We're
heard around the world.
We are. Yeah, it is inconsistent, and it's amazing that the Republicans that would like to talk about some of these things, for example, Rand Paul, would not or will not get the media time to explain it.
Yes.
And they will always tell you, well, I wished I could have, entered that discussion, but I was available and they didn't come to me,
Rand took on Elliott Abrams.
I saw that.
Yeah, yesterday. Mm-hmm. But he didn't mention or didn't realize when talking about how Guido was also a socialist.
Yeah.
He's part of his party is part of the International Socialist movement.
He's the other socialist.
Yeah. But so was Elliott Abrams.
Right.
Remember we talked about Social Democrats USA back in the 60s? They were sort of a right-wing socialist party. They were part of the International Socialist Organization.
Strobe Talbot turned up in conversation the other day in a discussion of the neoconservative league, and that name comes out of the Clinton years. He said that in 30 years there would be 3 currencies and 3 regions as part of their grand mosaic design to create their new world order. I'd say that they are fit to be tied about Trump's securing the nomination eventually to the presidency and making the changes that he's done so far. Quite extraordinary.
Yeah, so let's, no matter all his faults, and I bring up his faults, but for all his faults, I mean, you just got to go with them again in November.
I think this is as good as it gets. I mean, I fault the Libertarians in particular for this because they want this perfect world, this doctrinaire world. That's, if that can happen, fine, but we're not anywhere near that, and we've got to recognize the fact that he is the libertarian in the room. We've got to go with him. Give him another 4 years. Maybe we can develop ourselves along those lines with other people like Matt Gaetz or whoever comes out, in 2024. But the trend is there. We can't go back. It's time to recognize that and go forward.
And Joe Jorgensen, if there are any libertarians out there, you're welcome to reach out to us.
Call the show?
Yeah. But Joe Jorgensen said that we can no longer just believe in equality. We have to be anti-racist.
Yeah.
And she took a lot of flack for that, rightly so.
Yeah, I think so too.
Anti-racism is a religion. You can't be anti-racist.
Right. It's perfectly legal to be a racist.
Yes. Well, we'll be back.
I spend a lot of time in the garage, but even more time in the rain, sleet,
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
All right, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. I'm your host, Brendan Traynor, co-host Leland Faegre, and you know there were some primaries yesterday.
I know, yeah, pretty exciting.
One of them that has the progressive wing of the Democratic Party all up and happy was Cori Bush won the Democratic primary for congressperson in Colorado.
Boy, what's happened to Colorado, huh? We used to say that about Drudge and so many things, but I mean, that state used to be, Second Amendment and anti-abortion, and it was really an American state. It's really drifted in the wrong direction.
Well, yeah, it's becoming purple. I mean, it's not completely blue, but it's getting...
It's all about those damn marijuana smokers, isn't it?
Well, she is known because she was homeless.
Yeah, she was a homeless advocate, yeah.
Yeah, from the original Hands Up, Don't Shoot Ferguson, Missouri incident. And it's an American success story in the fact that she has gone from living on the streets to being able to have a seat in Congress.
Taxpayer-supported legislature.
Yeah, and we'll see how she votes. I mean, I hear she's to the left of AOC, so we'll see.
Oh, good.
They're all excited, and then remember Chris Kobach?
Yeah,
he was a darling of the president and the
former governor there, and
he ran for governor, but he lost.
That's right. He didn't lose by much, though, as I recall. It was a close race. Mm-hmm.
But Kansas is a pretty red state, but they have had Democratic governors before. So he tried for the Senate, and Mitch McConnell opposed him, and the president didn't actually throw his weight behind him. He kind of stayed out of it. And he lost, but it was feared that if he did win the primary, that he would lose the election because they think his views on, especially on immigration, are even too far to the right for even Kansas, apparently.
Which is difficult to understand.
That's difficult to understand. But so they probably will keep the seat, but it's going to be occupied by another potted plant. Mm-hmm. Not going to do much at all. And so, Nevada has been in the news because Governor Sissylak, there was this, you said it was a last-minute vote or midnight vote?
AB4.
AB4?
Yeah, that was in the middle of the night, effectively, while nobody was watching,
Boy, all of these bills get passed in the middle of the night. They always find a way, these legislatures.
They don't like scrutiny.
Nope. And that would mandate the mail-in ballots.
Mm-hmm. And virtually everybody that's ever lived in Nevada is going to get a mail-in ballot, according to this AB4, which has been signed into law. And of course, the administration has sent a team of lawyers out here to challenge the law. I don't think he is going to succeed in this.
Well, normally, we need to... we have a libertarian expert named Richard Winger who publishes a webzine called Ballot Access News that is the absolute expert on election law.
Yeah, we should get him on the show.
Yeah, or we should at least look at what he says. But the fact is that it's not going to be easy for the federal government to overturn what the state wants, as far as the states are basically
that's federalism.
Their elections. Yeah. So
it's going to be very difficult.
Right.
But this trend, they're looking for chaos. That's what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. Because they don't want a legitimate someone who wins legitimately on November 3rd. They want the haze. They want just like in 2016. They like that kind of thing where they can just stoke that for another 4 years. Mm-hmm. Trump was elected initially on the basis of Russian intervention. this time it'll be because, what did Hillary say over the weekend? She said that Trump plans to sabotage the postal system. Yeah. I mean, it's always Trump's fault.
I could just see him, and maybe Ivanka will accompany him, and they, put on the hood and go back in the back of the post offices and sabotage the machinery.
Oh yeah, the artists will go crazy on this one. But I think we should probably talk for a minute about Biden's running mate.
Yes. Yeah.
And this might be the best place to discuss it. And I think what I would like to say about it is that the suggestion that Hillary could prevail here is based on an assumption that he's going to need help not just with mental acuity, but also with the Durham investigation.
I'm prepared to say that I have a record of over 40 years and that I'm going to beat Joe Biden.
See? And that's what they're afraid of mostly.
Right.
His mental acuity is one thing, but going back to the coup d'etat, that's another problem for them, and they need somebody on that ticket that can fend off all of that. And I think that's where the likelihood of a Hillary Clinton or Susan Rice.
Michelle Obama?
Well, Michelle, I don't think she's really ready.
I don't think she wants to do it.
I don't think she wants to do it. I hear she suffers from a low-grade depression. I saw it on Drudge this morning.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So,
well, if you lived with Barack, maybe you would be depressed.
I suppose that goes with the territory, doesn't it?
But
I think those two issues, his mental acuity being one, that's obvious to everyone, most everyone, and then also his inability to fend off the coup d'etat, which is going to come. That investigation is going to yield something by the end of summer, and we're just coming up on it right now. So he's going to need help. Now, she comes with all of the baggage associated with the coup d'etat. She was part of the coup d'etat. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that it can't be used to leverage his defense in the narrative.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying that if it's Susan Rice, we'll know why it is, You've got the other woman of color from California, Kamala.
Right.
And you've got Hillary, which is also black. Mm-hmm. So any of those three would be acceptable to the handlers, to the elites who are controlling the Democrat nomination process.
Right. Right, and of course, Kamala's just an empty suit, another opportunist. Mm-hmm. She was really taken down by Tulsi Gabbard in one of the best moments of the whole primaries and one of the debates.
Proving how vulnerable she was.
Yes. And so some people are saying that Biden hasn't gotten over that, and that attack. And
I don't think he remembers it.
Probably. And then you've got Susan Rice, who is an absolute neocon, who's still insisting that Russia is behind everything.
Yeah.
It's behind the Black Lives, the attacks, the riots in the street, all started by Russia.
Did you see her quote about Trump's decision to pull U.S. troops out of the Syrian theater?
Oh, yeah, it was a gift to Putin.
Yeah. And it was bat blank crazy.
Right.
Quite an interesting selection if he chooses to go down that road, because there will be a lot to get her with. She brings so much baggage that the administration will have to use in campaign ads going into November. But I'm more inclined to say that it's all about Biden's mental acuity and his health generally, because they don't know really what to do with him. There's a story this morning. Did you see where Trump is saying this morning that there is a major bombshell coming from the Justice Department on the Durham investigation?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't quite hear that. Is another bombshell on the Durham?
Yeah, that has not been on the radar previously.
Okay.
He mentioned it on Fox and Friends this morning.
Okay.
So, depending upon, I think it's really going to get more interesting than people realize as we come into
the
end of summer. And
I hope so. I mean, with all these doldrums that we're having,
we need some blood on the floor, don't we?
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah.
And who's better to bring that blood down than Donald Trump? I don't see anybody.
No.
It could be Matt Gaetz in 24. I'd like to see Matt Gaetz emerge as the front runner after Trump's 8 years. But for right now, there's nobody willing that I see.
You've got Nikki Haley, and you've got a host of neocons.
She's just establishment.
Yeah, I know. I don't want her.
We don't want anybody like that there.
Tom Cotton. Pompeius Maximus.
Oh, okay.
He wants to run.
Mr. Pomposity?
Yes.
Is that why he didn't run for Senate in Kansas?
I think so, yeah. He's holding his fire. He doesn't want to have a defeat or doesn't want to be locked in until then. Mm-hmm. So he'll probably
he won't get my
vote.
He won't get my vote.
No, he won't get my vote. Yeah. No, I'll go back to third party.
I'll go back to the Libertarian.
How bad it is. Yeah, because he's just running around making a fool of himself all over the world, and nobody believes him. Nobody's following him. He's.
Did you hear he sanctioned Assad's son?
No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. What the hell? Assad, so he can't use his own money, according to Pomposity, Mr. Pomposity.
Huh.
Isn't that something? What the hell? I think that was from Ron Paul. He disseminated that a couple days ago. Yeah.
Right. I mean, our partners in Europe. I mean, they've got to stand up sometime. I mean, he's still ragging on Denmark not to finish off the final stage of Gulf Stream, Nord Stream, I think it's called, Nord Stream 2, the Russian gas pipeline into Germany.
Yeah.
He's still ragging on that. And
well, they have a right to do what they've done, but you know what? Germany is delinquent on their NATO dues. So let's just get rid of NATO and make it easy for them.
You hear it all the time. Buy local, think local, eat local, choose local, grow local. But who the heck really is local? You can shop with locals at the Nevada Market.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now, back to the show.
And welcome back. Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm Brendan Traynor. I'm here with Leland Faegre, and you found your quote.
I've got that Eisenhower quote, which I looked for a long time ago and couldn't find. Here it is. If in 10 years all American troops stationed in Europe for national defense purposes have not been returned to the United States, then this whole project will have failed, end quote.
Well, it's a failure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. We can primarily blame Bill Clinton for that.
And it's an expensive failure.
Right. Very expensive. So, we touched on a lot of things. I'm going to try to end on a little bit of a lighter touch, but it's...
Oh, good.
It's... I guess you don't watch a lot of movies, huh?
Not too many.
No. Well, there's this comedian, comic actor, Josh Rogan. Ever hear of him?
I haven't.
All right. He's done some comedy movies that are well known, and he's well liked. He's a genial type of person. He's a young secular Jew. He did one romantic comedies like Knocked Up with Katherine Hagel. That was one. He did a pot
Was that
movie.
about a prize fighter? Knocked Up?
No, it was about a guy, a slacker, a loser. I think he and his buddies have a YouTube where they try to count the breasts in movies, and they try to, say how many times a woman bared her breast in movies.
You can do that?
Yeah, you can do anything on YouTube.
Okay.
But he's basically a slacker, and she's a yuppie type, and they meet in a bar, and he knocks her up, and it turns into a very nice romantic comedy as they come to accept each other. And then he did a pot movie called...
Well, did she file suit against him?
No. She didn't
He knocked her up?
No, he knocked her up, but she came to like him. She didn't get an abortion or anything like that. It's a family movie.
Okay.
And then a pot movie called Pineapple Express, which was kind of weird but funny. And he's done a bunch of movies anyway.
Well, if they make humor out of pineapples, that's pretty damn good.
Right. But I wanted to bring him up because he was on a podcast with another Jewish person named Mark Marone. And what they had to say was kind of unusual and a little bit humorous because they were talking about Israel. And Rogan said, I just don't understand it when he's talking about Zionism. It just seems, and he's talking about one of the excuses for Zionism, for taking over the land there in the Middle East, Palestine, was because of the Holocaust. The Holocaust was such a terrible event that, never before, genocide and all that. And so and in order to keep the Jews safe, they had to have a homeland. That's one of the excuses.
Yeah, that's always been one of the excuses.
So Rogan was saying, it just seems like there had to have been a better strategy. He says, you don't keep all your Jews in one basket.
I knew it had to be pretty good. Yeah, it's damn good.
Yeah. And so
because when you think of humor, you think of Zionism right away, don't you?
I know. It makes no sense whatsoever, he went on. It would be nice to live somewhere that was not part of the Christian apocalyptic prophecies, talking about the dispensationalism and the end of the world and all that.
Anywhere at all.
Yeah. Maybe settle somewhere that the Christians don't think you all have to die in order for the apocalypse to happen. And then they would talk about whether they would live there. And do you want to live in Israel? Macron asked, and Rogan said, no. It says, I'm not, and then Marone says, we're going to piss off a bunch of Jews. But for some reason, my mother is not religion. Her generation, they're kind of hung up on Israel, and they find comfort in it. But I couldn't imagine living there. And then Rogan says, no, there are some nice parts, but at best you'd be convincing yourself they are far enough away from a major conflict to not worry about it, which is a terrible thing to convince yourself of. Yeah, so then Rogan goes on, I just don't understand the whole, and he's talking again about Zionism. To me, it just seems very, very much like an antiquated thought process. Like maybe it's for religious reasons, but I don't agree with it because I think religion is silly. All right?
Yeah.
That's I agree with that.
I have no problem with that.
Yep. If it was truly for the preservation of the Jewish people, it makes no sense because, you don't keep something you're trying to preserve all in one place, especially when that place has proven to be pretty volatile, I'm trying to keep all these things safe, so I think I'm going to put them all in my blender and hope that's the best place.
That's a pretty good line.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah. But then he got a little bit serious, and he says, and I think that as a Jewish person, I think I was fed a huge amount of lies about Israel my entire life. They never tell you, the Zionists, they never tell you that, oh, by the way, there were people living there already. They make it seem like it was just sitting there. And, the effing door's open. And Marone said, it's ours for the taking. Yeah. Yes, literally, they forgot to include the fact where every young Jewish person, basically, oh, by the way, there's some people living there. So he says, I don't understand Zionism at all. I think for Jewish people especially who view themselves as progressive, and who view themselves as analytical, and who view themselves as people who ask a lot of questions and really challenge the status quo, like, what were we doing? And then they both agreed. They both started talking about how they were afraid of the Jews. And Rogan says, I'm 100% afraid of Jews. That's it. I mean, it's...
100% afraid.
Yeah, it's scary. But we're Jews. We're supposed to be able to say whatever we want. If anybody could say whatever the F they want about this crap, it would be two famous Jewish people. But if anybody's going to get rounded up first, it's our fucking butts. So, it's just a moment of truth. But like we talked about how a liberal, Peter Beinart, a very liberal commentator, has come out against Zionism.
Talked about him a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we talked about him. And it's, it's a little bit humorous, but there's a lot of insight in that humor.
There is. And comedy is one of the best ways to educate, I think.
Right.
done well, done properly, I think it's a very, very effective way to communicate.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
and this was a good example of that.
Right. And it's also a little funny. We got a few minutes left. Did you know about the brouhaha between Hezbollah and Israel recently?
Another one?
Yeah. Israel has been bombing outside of Damascus, claiming that they're bombing Iranian targets. Mm-hmm. So in one of, I think it was the weekend before last or last weekend, they bombed a target and outside of Damascus, and they killed a Hezbollah soldier there, a militia member. And so Hezbollah said, we reserve the right to retaliate, and we will retaliate, but at a time of our choosing.
Right.
And so, you know what? The Israeli Defense Fund, they're supposed to be this fearless group of soldiers that, will take on anybody. And they've succeeded in all these daring raids to rescue Jews and to knock out the nuclear facilities in Iraq and all this stuff. But they get terrified. They on the Golan Heights, they put cardboard cutouts of soldiers in their armored vehicles because they're afraid that Hezbollah is going to retaliate. And so over the weekend, there was some shooting going on, and the IDF claimed that Hezbollah did make an advance, and they shot at them and they retreated. And Hezbollah says, "No, we didn't go anywhere. You guys were shooting at ghosts." And the Israeli papers kind of believe Hezbollah. They actually don't have that high an opinion of the Israeli Defense Fund. And part of it is, I've heard military analysts say
that's why the Knesset gets along so well.
Yeah. So they're quaking in their boots, and Hassan Nasrallah was saying that they're a bunch of Hollywood soldiers. They're only good in movies and they're not good in... Because Hezbollah's defeated them twice, let's not forget. And the second time in 2006, they defeated them with 2,000 militia that weren't the best militia. They had most of their best people back around Beirut in Lebanon, protecting Beirut, and they had their second best troops out in southern Lebanon, and they defeated the IDF handily. So, there's a lot of things going on over there. It's very unstable. Netanyahu's still trying to form a government.
Yep.
He's still on trial for corruption. You've got people demonstrating in the streets against his COVID-19 policies.
But the reason he hasn't been brought to justice, or at least charges brought, is because they want to drag that out against him in the course of, the next election.
Right, exactly.
So they don't really want a trial.
Yeah, so they put the election off again until September, hoping that by that time they won't have a trial,
right.
or they can slow up the works. But his opponent, this General Gantz, he's really no better. There is no left wing or center, even center wing in Jerusalem. It's right, farther right, even farther right.
Nothing but socialist parliamentarians.
Yes.
That's all you've got there. No wonder it works so well.
Anti-Palestinian socialist government. Yeah. So it's just kind of amusing, I think, to think about this, and maybe if we didn't get all so serious about Israel, we used a little more humor, maybe we would get a little further along in convincing Americans what a sham it is.
Yeah, I think that really would be the way to approach it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we're coming to another end of Talking Truth to Power.
All right.
We sure had fun today, didn't we?
Yep.